I want to take this time to thank everybody for their support of myself, Mark, and the music and mental health movement. Please take this time to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get notified of when I drop some more great content. Thank you.
Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. Our next topic at hand, I wanted to talk about some of the greatest lessons that I learned from doing races. Now, you guys know from all the different fitness posts that I have put up that I do a lot of different obstacle course races. I do a lot of runs, 5Ks, 10Ks. Recently, I've gotten into these functional strength challenges such as Spartan Deca Fit, Deca Strong, High Rocks, etc. I want to go back to my history a little bit and talk about how I got to this point. Those things are my new sports because I was always in sports as a kid. I loved sports and I loved the competition, and I was in every sport that you could think of. I was in baseball, I was in basketball, I was in football, soccer, you name it, I probably did it or tried it. I wasn't great at every single one of the sports that I did, but I will say that I was always one of the most athletic people in the sport, and I won much more often than I lost. We can even take that a little bit further. I was in music competitions as well. And same thing with the music. I didn't always win, but I was always one of the better people in those competitions, piano, saxophone, and I came away with a lot of first, second, or third place awards for those competitions that I was in. So that's kind of the standard that I was used to from childhood. You get into a competition of any kind, you're in it to win it. And there's nothing to really celebrate. I was not celebrating for a participation award. And I don't really think my parents were celebrating participation awards either, even though they didn't say, oh, you got to win or else, because I know some people experience that, but it was still, you're not really going to experience excitement from me unless you are in one of the top spots. So when I got out of that type of environment, I wasn't in school anymore and I became an adult. I realized that the levels that you get to, there's so many more adults competing for things in the world, especially when it comes to athletic competitions. And the types of athletic competitions that I attend, the people who are winning are people who dedicate their lives to this. And you think that I dedicate my life to it, and I do in a way. You know, I do way more fitness and training than the average person, but there's people who are very, very strict with their training and their eating, extremely strict. They come in there with high endurance, um, very low body fat. They do a lot of cardio. They do a lot of functional strength training, whatever is required for that particular thing. I want to actually take it to one of my first races that I remember running. Not my very first, but one of the first ones. And it was a Thanksgiving Day 5K. So I didn't know running etiquette at all, or like anything about how people do runs, because I was in sports, but I was never somebody who did any kind of long distance runs. Not my thing, still not my thing. So I recall I thought I was going to win, or I thought that even if I didn't win, I was going to be one of the top people just because I'm fast and I can push myself, or I assumed that I could push myself. And what I mean by that is, even though I wasn't eating right or training properly, I know that I can outrun people in short distances. So I assume I could do so in a longer distance. And I didn't think that 5K was all that far. So I was like, okay, let's get this done. So I remember getting up to the starting line, and the guys were looking at me. The guys at the starting line were kind of looking at me like, back up. This is our spot. And I was thinking to myself, why are they so adamant about their spot? Now I know, after doing several of these things, that that's actually like race etiquette, that the people who know they are in competition to win the race are the ones who line up at the front, because they don't want anyone obstructing them at the start, because that can be valuable seconds that they lose. So they finally got me to move to the second row. But I remember when this race started, they blew the horn. I started running. I was right up with these guys. So I was like, you guys made me move, but here I am, keeping stride with all of y'all. No problem. But then, about, I would say, no more than a quarter mile into the race, I started to feel tired because I sped up more than what I was capable of in that moment in order to keep up with these guys who I assumed were going to win or be in competition to win the race. They're still going. Now I'm walking. Now people that I passed at the beginning of the race are now passing me. And I'm trying to run, but I emptied the tank in the first 3-4 minutes of this race. So I learned in that moment, you're running a race against yourself ultimately. Yes, there's other people that you're trying to beat, and maybe sometimes there's pacers. Like, I know that when people do marathons, they're competing, there's pacers, and I know that sometimes you go at the pace of the group for a time, but ultimately the winner knows what pace that they can go. They're racing against themselves. They know how much they've practiced. They know what they've put into it. They know what general times they do. Somebody is not going to practice and prepare and do like an average of 30 minutes, let's say, for a 5K, and then get there on race day and do 20 minutes. You could shave some time off of your practice times, but it's not going to be a big significant time. So that's one lesson. Keep your own pace. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses and then end up having to fall back. Another thing, as I was talking about myself always being accustomed to winning things, I have never won any of these competitions that you guys see me in. I've only placed once. One time I placed in third in my age group for a 5K. Third place out of 5 people. And I think that was because, well, number one, there was only 5 people in my class, and number two, I think they were overall generally slower than most of the people in my age group for typical 5Ks. And my goal for like a whole year or two was like, okay, I know that I'm coming into these races and finishing way towards the bottom, but I eventually want to win, or at least be top 10, top 15, at least, at the very least. But I wanted to win badly because I'm so used to winning things. Like I said, as a child, I always won a lot of different things. I got to a point where I said, you know what? The win is how I feel crossing that finish line. The win is all the work that I put in to get to this point. The win is the changes that all the practicing, training, and eating right is doing to my body. The win is the respect that I get. by the other competitors, seeing all my hard work and seeing me push through when things are hard, when it looks like I'm down and out. That's the win. The win is not having to beat the person to my left or my right. And kudos to the people who get into a competition of 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 5,000 people, and cross the tape. I know that has to feel amazing, but I feel amazing where I'm at because I know the average person is not doing this. And I know that I am pushing myself to what my limits are. That's my win. That's my win. I even remember one of the first functional training competitions that I did. I was so disappointed with my result because I was last place in that gym. There's only 2 times in any physical competitions that I remember finishing last, and one of them was that time that I'm talking about. I finished last place in that gym. That was actually a Spartan Deca Strong, as a matter of fact. I was last place out of all the people that were in there. And then 2 years, I was last place in a run where I was coming off of a couple of injuries, but I had booked the run and I was committed to seeing it through. And I finished last place in both of those. It has never happened again. And I don't foresee it really happening again, like dead last. But there were even wins to be taken from both of those situations. The win was that I didn't quit. Imagine doing a race and you're in the race for only a little bit. And what I mean by that is you're not in the middle of the pack or you're not even within a group at the back of the pack. You're just last and nobody's around you. At that point in time, you're like, I can just quit because nobody's here. Nobody sees me. I want to just walk off the course at this point because I'm not competing for anything. Yes, you are. This right here is going to remember that time when you felt defeated, but you didn't stop. This right here is going to remember that time. And not just that, you can use that as your motivation. I remember what it was like finishing last here. And I don't want to be in that position again. That's Mamba mentality. Rest in peace to Kobe Bryant, by the way, and Gianna, and all the others that were lost to that tragedy. But that's Mamba mentality. Using the pain as motivation to propel yourself forward. So those are a couple of the biggest lessons that I learned from doing these competitions. I hope that you all gain something from this, and I hope everyone has a great day. We will talk soon.